welcome to Into the Mirror, your top podcast for healings, transformations, and brave and bold awakenings. My name is Alexander, and I'll be your host today. Today is episode 1 of season 6. Actually, this is about the year anniversary of the podcast, and honestly, man, time flies when I'm not in trouble. It's time was so slow for so long. Then all of a sudden I get free, away from addiction, and all of a sudden time's like, boom. And that's honestly just because I enjoy life so much. So super grateful to be where I'm at. And today I'm going to kind of repeat the first episode Brody and I did on transmutation and alchemy. So what is transmutation and alchemy? So these are some words that are overused in a lot of areas. And if you don't really investigate them, you can believe a lot of things. So let me start with just the normal, non-esoteric, non-healing definition. I mean, it's not healing, but so this is the physics definition. Transmutation, the changing of one element into another by radioactive decay, nuclear bombardment, or other similar processes. Doesn't that sound funny? Like, if you think of transmutation like healing and changing and growing, physics says the only way to change and grow is death and explosions. But no, the next definition that it's more is the definition I'm talking about. I'm looking at these other definitions all of a sudden. I'm like, all right, but the term, let me get back to what I mean by it. So alchemy and transmutation, they go together. Alchemy, I believe, is the process, and transmutation is one of the methods of alchemy. So in healing, in addiction, in anything in life, if you're like me, there's some emotions that fucking rocked your world. I mean, shame, guilt, pain, anger, hate, fear. I mean, all of those things, which really, for me, I finally learned came down to fear, and there's coping skills for fear. So let me read this article. I love this guy. It's short. It's off of yogajournal.com, and he wrote this great article, and I'm going to link it, called Turn Difficult Emotions into Feelings You Can Use. And I want to use this as it gives me somewhere to start from. So it goes, the term alchemy is known as the process of transmuting base elements into gold or silver. Now, see, that sounds cool, but honestly, for me, that is way less helpful than the alchemy I'm talking about. So, ancient alchemists placed the metal in a container and subjected it to influence of a transformative agent, whether heat or salt or other chemicals, and watched to see what changed. The underlying belief was that any substance, any person, think about this, start replacing you with substance, any person can be transmuted, even a sick, poisoned person, and its power used in a positive and transformative ways. He really said the underlying belief was that any substance can be transmuted, even a poison, and its power used in a positive and transformative way. And right then and there, I love it, because fuck yeah, I was poisoned. I was poisoned through thoughts, my actions, my words. I didn't know it either. My own ego pride was the bullshit. It's funny how you're so sick and unwell, but the pride is so strong because you don't have any, true confidence. So this guy, he goes on, and I like this, and anyone that knows my story will feel why I relate to this one. I first learned this principle from a South American shaman who, as part of his training, experienced a year of solitude and other rigors. During this initiation year, I experienced an intense yearning for human contact. For 7 months I suffered, he said. And then one day I felt Mother Earth rising up to hold and nourish me. And after that, my pain was gone. And to this day, I feel the power of my connection with her, and she helps me in my role as a healer. Now, I definitely relate to that. My own difficult multiple years of solitude and no nature at times. Anyway, we'll get into more of that. So look beyond the moment. So I heard a similar story from someone who struggled with addiction. I finally hit bottom. It was either kick the habit or die. I feel so much emotion when I read words nowadays that it's like joy and gratitude, but I still remember my own pain, and So I'd been an addict since age of 12. Words cannot describe the living hell I endured. The only way to get through it was to stay completely present, moment by moment, and train myself not to look beyond the moment. He said, so it's funny, not I get that. You don't want to lurk beyond the moment, and that's a practice of addiction and extreme struggling in prison and things. People get it. So he said, passing through the worst of it, I experienced a powerful confidence that I could do anything I put my mind to. I knew that I had the ability and the willingness to go the distance with anything I wanted to attain in life. It continues to serve me well. For me, it makes me like tear up a little just because I totally relate to that. I mean, the power of those dark emotions turned into pure confidence and willingness is incredible. Yeah, I'm about to drink some juice. I don't have my water in here, so oh well. So he goes on to say, I was surprised to hear very similar experiences from two men on opposite sides of the world, from completely opposing cultures, experiences, and education. Both men experienced a transformative, I think is misspelling, experienced a transformative element. In their cases, a combination of pain, determination, and desire that resulted in radical change in their lives. The intensity of the pain, the strength of the desire, and the grounding of determined perseverance created the confluence of forces needed for their transmutation. These are both examples of alchemy of emotions. So I'm going to read his base points on alchemy, and I'll just talk about my experiences. He's very wise, but I want to put some more experiences to this because uh, like the guy that wrote the article, and like I've experienced both sides of those stories, and I understand, I get it. So starts with how to transform your emotions. So your base emotions are energy trapped in reactive and protective defense patterns. And listen to this, guys. This is really important. Your base emotions are energy trapped in reactive and protective defense patterns. Fear, anger, hatred, and all their variations of emotional pain are all emotions that are reactions to danger, to violation, or hurt, whether they're perceived or real. But within each emotion is a higher emotional state, a non reactive state that can respond with love and intelligence to the circumstances of life. I have to tell you guys, when you start, like for me, when I released some of those anger and the self-hate, and I learned to understand it and learned an alchemical process of my own that took practice, and I didn't have internet access when I really started doing it, but I did have hard access, and that gives me the inside net access. Okay, that's not a very funny joke, but it works. The inside access, the heart field, which has divine knowledge far beyond any books, but we don't trust it until you practice it. So within each emotion is a higher emotional state. So when fear, I love this, when fear is transmuted, and this one I absolutely have experienced the grace transference. It's amazing. When fear is transmuted, it opens you up to the quality of courage. When anger is transmuted, it expands your capacity for reaching out into life. It can help you. And I know this, people that know me, when I get like healthy anger, that comes out is powerful. It is for all of us. It can help you set clear boundaries and act with loving fierceness on behalf of your well-being and the well-being of others. In that word, loving fierceness, I had a teacher. She's amazing. She called it, fierce tenderness, right, instead of tough love, and that's what I learned about. We'll get into that in another episode. But pain transforms into loving compassion and kindness. So listen, if you're in pain, remember that pain transforms into loving compassion and kindness. Hatred transmutes into positive power and love, and paradoxically leads to inner peace. This is absolutely true. When you start, that's the funny thing about anger and hatred, is once they're released, you notice that it expanded your scope of emotions, which expands the level of love and things you can experience. Because when you face those things, you don't even recognize it at first, how much of your divine soul, body, mind is being re-given back to you. All those pains, all those events, and this isn't in the article, are like, in Harry Potter, the Horcruxes. Every violent act he had to do that shattered his soul. The goal here is we're reclaiming our soul. We're reclaiming our body and mind that's been trapped through time and space. And I mean, like, through your childhood, through trauma that your psyche's reliving over and over, and it's never stopped that. You might think you found peace, but you most likely didn't unless you healed your stuff. And healing is a transmutation. That process is, there's a base pattern for everyone, but it is different for everyone. And I'll be honest, most psychologists, most therapists, most doctors, they're fucking idiots. Straight up. They have no idea because they've never healed themselves. They only can repeat jargon and words on paper that someone else wrote with no emotional compassion or empathy. And not all doctors, but generally speaking, the system has hijacked them. So if they don't face their fear, they're ruled by it. So here, the first step in transmutation. So when I was in jail, man, I would lay there on the bed in the hard mat, and it wasn't like even straight time. I was getting in trouble so often. I'd be in and out of jail, violating probation, thinking, that I could solve it and fix it. And I never could. But one thing I never could in that way. But I did start learning some of these powerful healings of emotions, because you don't have internet, you don't have this bullshit. And if you do it right, like when you do time, you have space and time to yourself, which is exactly what people need. But this system hijacks you, forces you into slave labor and a lot of other things, which, is another part of, okay, here we go, transmuting my anger and hatred of the way the system is to understanding that people are afraid. The system is a reflection of society's past. And I'm here in the now, and I'm here to change it. So, first step of transmutation, gather your emotions. Now, acting out strong emotion discharges the energy that you actually need for the alchemy. Learn to manage the emotion you're experiencing by breathing, grounding the energy of the emotion, and exerting the mindful practice of awareness. But let's face it, sometimes emotion has too much charge and you cannot easily process it. That is a natural part of life. Being prepared for that situation will help you safely and consciously release that emotion and energy. I'm glad that I can say those words without shuddering as much. Honestly, my transmutations, they were worth it, but they were difficult. And I understand why I ran away from them for so long and why I was hooked on opioids. I was a hurt kid, really, that didn't know he was truly hurt and didn't know that I could heal or have a good life, because most people don't. Most people on earth suffer, struggle. They repeat this pain cycle, but they think they're happy because they can go to the club or the bar and drink more poisons, So let's go. So the next step, so when you have the emotions, for me, I would tell you that that's when you go scream at them out, and you do things. And in prison, you can't discharge the anger like you can in the free world. Honestly, because you'll take it out on someone that's just as angry, just as big, just as masculine or as you, and has friends. So I had to suppress a lot of the anger and find a way from the inside out, because I have a temper. I love deeply, but my hurt part of me comes to protect me, right? Anger is a tool of protection that came out to. So invite and engage the emotion by talking, the attitude of curiosity, and allowing. For example, how does hatred or anger or fear feel in your body? He says anger has a lot of dynamic energy, often in the arms or jaw. It wants to strike out. Think about all the anger you have when you're mad and where it comes from. I try to teach this to people, but like road rage, the reason it's such a trigger point is because you're already consuming much of your energy on a subconscious level driving. It's dangerous. You would die if those people did those awful things. So the anger comes to protect you, right? And it can cause, we've seen the videos of road rage, and I like driving because it's called karma, action, reaction. I do this, it responds this way. That's the action of karma in this life that makes, honestly, if you can't understand how what you do affects everyone around you, I think that's what you should meditate on. But so hatred is cool, contained deep in the body. Hatred can be found in the forehead, the eyes, the contractions of the core. So when I read energy now, I can feel their heart, how it's constricting, trying to hide the emotions. And people that try to hide their facial emotions, it's so funny because they're going to have a stroke, or a heart attack. The heart expresses the feelings into the face. So when you're like, it's like your heart's like, I'm so sad, but you're like, it's all to protect you from feeling that pain that needs to come up through the heart center. So hatred is cool, contained deep in the body. Hatred can be found in the forehead, the eyes, the contraction. Anger wants to strike, but hatred wants to annihilate. A threat in a cool, calculated way. And anyone that's been angry thinks that they're calm, but they're actually in pure hatred. I have some people, even exes, that have felt this way about me, and I learned, I used to hold it against myself way beyond what was necessary. I took me a long time to put these things on people that I put women on pedestals. So when they hated me for a lot of honestly good reason, because I hurt them, it doesn't mean it's justified in any reason long term, because we all are. We all can have our emotions, but hatred and anger, not ones I like to be around often anymore. It's already hard enough when it's my anger, but so pain is this main one I think most empaths will find. Pain is another reactive emotion. It's a hurt, a wounding, a sense of loss. There are many causes of pain and many kinds of pain. Often when you think you experience pain, you are more likely thinking it than feeling it. This is to pay attention to that. Thinking of pain and feeling it different. And what I mean is the brain, the thoughts are like more airy and they move more focused into the body to be felt. So it's like I say it long enough in time and space and my body becomes that feeling. So, and if you don't notice this happening, I would tell you to pay attention, because it's one of the most powerful things you can just see. Thoughts become words, and words become actions, and they have to all be in alignment if you want to feel peace. You might sense it as a contraction in the area of your heart. So pain, we all have had pain. You might have learned to cut off pain, to rationalize it, or discharge it through emotional drama. We humans often judge ourselves for feeling pain. I would feel shame because I would feel hurt for being rejected by people that honestly, I'm worth a lot more than what my value was set up by these people. And the thing is, I didn't know that then. I had that fake egoic confidence, but it's turned into real confidence, real badass, good attitudes. Ask anyone. That's my friend. I learned this transmutation effect, and I learned how to do it on the fly as well. Learned how to do it locked up in handcuffs on the fucking bus, the prison bus. Oh my God. Where you had you couldn't pee, all these situations I had where I had this shame because was hurt. I was ashamed of being this outcast, this guy extradited to the airport with handcuffs like I'm a killer or something. But truthfully, I was in pain and I had addiction. And our system actually reinforces that. We put people into a more painful trauma event place because of trauma. It's one of the sickest things we do. And like they say, they know the level of a society by how you treat the prisoners and the old people. And I don't think we treat them very well now. You might have we humans often judge ourselves for feeling pain, but when you actually feel your pain without trying to get rid of it, you open the door for compassion to take place. So this is what I mean. As a painkiller addict, I can tell you one of the tricks of pain and healing that I learned is opening yourself to the pain but how you respond to the pain is the next step, because if you respond with anger or hatred, like I would say opioids is like hatred of pain, and it's not actually processing it. It's that cool, I'm in no pain, I feel nothing but good little euphoric buzz. That's nothing compared to what your body and brain can do without substances, by the way. We often judge ourselves. Yeah, I do that. But when you actually take place to feel it. So this is something to practice, to not try to, like when you feel the pain, to be like, no, I don't feel it. And I noticed this just running now. Like I had an injury in my left leg, and I would run and it hurt, and I'd get so mad when it hurt, but then I was just mad because running was a coping skill. So it was a good practice this past month on how not to get mad at it, to be like, okay, for me, I like thank my body for being healthy and strong enough to rebound and recover. So number third, the last step this guy has, everyone has different ways for managing their emotions. So it's like, is the thing says find the truth in your emotions. And let me just read the title. Gather your emotions is one. Don't suppress emotions or avoid emotions is two. And find the truth in your emotions is three. So everyone has different ways of managing their emotions. Sometimes you may judge them, thinking you are weak for having certain negative feelings. And in your awakening path, this is one of the tricks of the ego that tries to convince you you're still unworthy, because you say you're awakened, but you're angry, and like the toxic people will point that out in your life. You're not awakened, even though they're really the angry ones. It's part of it. You'll see it. That's why, like, even Jesus says no one's a prophet or a healer in their hometown, because the people of your past reinforce the past, and that includes family and friends especially. So back to number three. Or sometimes you may judge them, thinking that you are weak for having certain negative feelings, or maybe you feel being afraid to give them up because they've protected you for so long. This is so hard. I was stuck in these repeat loops about ex-girlfriends or situations from the past. People I loved, but I had the pain loops. What I mean is, I felt this powerful love for people, but the hurt, I couldn't feel that love. And you have to open your heart. And to feel the love, you have to open your heart. But to get to that point, you have to open your heart, which opens you up to the pain. And if you restrict it and constrict, think about it. You're like trying to stop the pain. You're shoving it down. That's like storing the file on a hard drive on your computer. But later, you're still going to have to open the file to delete it. It has to be opened somewhat. And that's the Transmutation Heart Center. So it is important to understand the relationship you have to your emotions in order to move forward. Like, I'm pretty skilled in emotional understanding, just from all my rehabs, I intuitively understand it, and thank God for that. But it took practice. So don't think, like, especially if you're older, don't think you know yourself just because you're 50 years old. That's insanity there. That's actually the old 20-year-old you that's been imprisoning you for those 25 later years. Anyway, Okay, so he says hatred is a great example here. As a society, we tend to judge this emotion as bad. We think that feeling of hatred makes us a bad person. But hatred arises from a deep hurt, often a perceived betrayal or a deep fear of being annihilated. It's a natural defense emotion. Jealousy, self-rejection, disdain, contempt, arrogance are all variations of hatred. While it can be dangerous to act on hatred or turn it against yourself, the actual feeling of hatred is a natural protection. I experienced this just a few months ago. I wanted to ask that woman out at the restaurant, and she hadn't answered me. My own fear overwhelmed me, and I go in and I talk to one of the guys that works there, and he confronts me about it, and he said some things, and I hadn't felt rage or hatred like that for quite a few years, and I wanted to annihilate him. Like, he was the problem. But the truth is, what he was representing is my rejection. Like, I felt rejected. And he did it in public. It was very unkind. And anyone that, like, good grief, I'm so glad I practiced this stuff, because old me would have destroyed him. I mean, I would have tried to ruin his job. I would have done everything possible to make sure that he felt the same pain I felt. And that's the human condition. We want to be felt and heard and expressed, but luckily I didn't. I got mad. I called him disrespectful and I walked out. But it took months later for me to let it go. I mean, practice, because I felt so hurt, felt rejected. And when I felt rejected in public, anger and hatred came to protect me. And honestly, that hatred for a little while, it gave me a little bit of balance to reposition myself. What I mean is that cut me from the situation. I felt the feeling, all the good feelings I felt too. I was instant, whoa, boom. And I was like, felt this minor hatred, but I don't like poison. I don't like feeling that way. And if I have any power to change those feelings, I work on it. Even if, so I didn't involve talking to them again. I sent an amends for calling him names and then, text him and never spoke to him again. Haven't been in there, but I did have to work on the situation. To meditate, I had to, it messed up my pattern, right? I would eat there a lot. And so all of my patterns got discombobulated. So every time I would do something, I was reminded of that situation for a couple of weeks. But through this alchemy, I ended up with, I'll tell you now, far more compassion and joy and compassion for these people too. And so it says, clearing out your judgments towards emotions like hatred is a core component of the alchemical process. Have you ever forgiven a friend for a personal slight and felt the immediate lightening in your spirit and mindset? Once you allow yourself to understand the root of your emotions, breathe into it. So this is very important. And you'll notice when you are open to change, your body responds accordingly. So notice right in here, like that breath, to receive the breath. You also, that same spot opens to receive the emotion in the heart center. That is where heaven and earth meet. That is where all transmutation happens. And that is where all of us must be brave. So once you allow yourself to understand the root of your emotions, breathe into it and open your heart and mind. You will begin to transmute the emotion. Transmute that emotion to its higher aspects. Your emotions are gifts because they are doorways to their higher expressions. The alchemy of emotion can bring unexpected gifts to your life. Absolutely. I got a little a juice mustache. All that time I spent meditating, sitting on my bunk in jails or in beds in rehabs and couches of friends when I was on the run, I finally learned, how to start releasing those emotions, the depression, the sadness, the feeling like a failure for where I ended up in life. I felt like when I was 30, like I finally felt like I graduated high school in a way. And now my life is just developing. But the things that were addiction is like a war. I mean, I had so many battles at it. And one thing is that I didn't, give up. First my body is far too resilient to give up. I would have suffered a lot longer living a gross death until one day I just died. But I didn't. And this alchemy, transmutation, is one of the best things you guys can start doing. I do it all the time. I do it every day. I take the emotion, and you'll see how emotions are energy. So if you want to see it like the dark emotions, they're just energy. And the way you're using that energy is what you're changing. And to change the makeup of the energy, you're moving around like data files as you go up the chakras or the states of consciousness. So every lens of consciousness, you look at the pain at different lenses. And as you do, it changes shape. And all of a sudden, that hatred is deep love. I'll tell you one for me. My jealousy, I noticed truthfully, or envy was based in the pure love I felt for these people, or this one woman in particular. I was like, okay, I feel that way because I love her a lot. And the alchemy was hard for a while because I was rejected by her, and I created that own rejection. I did, for sure. I was dishonest, full of shit, and very hurt, and, still hooked on drugs. So the alchemy, though, is for me, I had to accept the love for her, which is amazing. I feel it to this day, gratitude for her, even though we don't speak. And I had to forgive myself for all those things. And I had to sit with it. So I had to be open to the fact that, you have to accept it. I feel rejected. I feel this. I feel that. That doesn't mean I feel this and I respond like this and go, I hate this. That is the sickness. Every time you feel a pain and you respond with that energy where you'll know it because you tighten up, you shake it. Notice what your body is doing. So as you release this stuff, though, guys, the feelings that are trapped in your body where you have stomach pains and heart pains and all that, because your heart, as you transmute, will be in pain. Like what I call it, it's like a massage. You're getting a massage in there. You're working the knots out of your heart. It's untangling the heart. And to do that, you have to process all the experiences. So it's like a furnace, and the ideas are churning up and you burn through them. And what's left is good energy. Like I like to say that my karmic past is the fucking fuel to my fire of enlightenment. That's how I see it, and it works. So anyway, alchemy. Like I just wanted to do a share in that article. That guy, great. I mean, honestly, I love the article. It's powerful, and I'll share it in the link. But transmutation, you really can claim your power back. You can be whole. You can be healthy. And you can let go of these events, these fears, these pains, and you can learn to sit with something and realize it's not forever. Anytime you hear the thing that says this is forever, it's a lie. I mean, like nothing on earth is forever. So that includes pain, that includes pleasure, all those things. Like it takes practice, and the transmutation process takes time. You might only elevate the emotion. The goal is to elevate the emotion to its higher aspect, even for a brief moment. So what you're doing is every time you feel it, you go to love. Even if you don't feel love, you choose love in your head. And if you feel love, but your mind's like discombobulated, like that's good because you're purging this shit. The heart, I like to say the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So an emotion is worth 1,000 thoughts. So what I mean is every emotion you have, your body, the way it feels the energy and then gives you ideas based on this vibration you're in. And that's the thoughts, like yes, no, blah, 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 blah. But after a certain amount of thoughts, because they're energy, the emotion dissipates. If you choose to release it, if you put energy into anger or hate, you're actually storing that file for longer. You're saving that encrypted to a hard drive in your body that you need to release later, and it gets harder to decode those things. And then, so that's why find that alignment, sit with yourself. I mean it, and open your heart with a breath. You can't sit there and be like, I'm so angry. That doesn't work. Your body will respond with openness when you're in an open state of mind. Everything begins to align like that. So anyway, have a great day. I hope you like the article like I did, and hope you like the alchemy talk. Thanks. If I can end this.